Queer theory, which is branched under critical theory, came to light in the early 1990s as the LGBT community began to rise to eminence. Judith Butler is one of the founders of this theory, who is currently a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and identifies as lesbian. One of her main contributions to this theory is the idea of identity being free and flexible and sex as a performance, not an essence, meaning that there is a slightly versatile relationship here, and only through performance, repetition, and ritualized productions, a person's true identity and sex can be revealed and formed fully, which cannot always be determined during the time of birth of an individual. It's a lot more complex and subjective than that when looking at gender, identity, and sex through the theoretical framework of queer theory. So one of the main issues currently lies in the mainstream social definitions, and shifting these terms to more fluid concepts rather than concrete for the masses would certainly lead to some substantial social progress. Critical theory simultaneously seeks to assess, critique, and emancipate society as a whole by way of the application of the social sciences and the humanities. And by doing so, certain institutional and ideological forces are brought into question that have historically dehumanized certain groups and individuals within our society, which has undeniably made it more difficult for these groups to be truly emancipated from the change of the social norms that are pressed onto them. It further seeks to find a solution where there is an equilibrium met for the inferior or oppressed party, and these solutions must both be practical and achievable in efforts to meet a purposive remodeling of the current social reality. The theory also must meet the criteria of being explanatory and normative in order to be considered critical.
What's wrong with the social reality is that transgender feminism is criticized through society in various ways. This includes societies that considers it to be a deviant behavior or not acceptable in certain societies. As a result of not being accepted in certain societies, they face stigmas and labeling of inappropriate names, going through stereotypes and rejection in society. Among those who are rejected, they may feel they do not fit into society, and may feel they excluded from the social norms that includes acquiring a specific job, or may feel they cannot perform a certain task in society. Continuing off the social reality, society criticizes that transgender women are not real women because no matter of all the alterations done, the chromosomes in their genes cannot be altered to represent a female chromosome. Therefore, transgender females will express a gene showing an XX rather than an XY. Going based off of this, society criticizes that altering a gene is more of a social decision rather than going off what a chromosome shows.
There are certain gender roles for females. Gender roles in society means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex based on what society says it is morally the right thing to do. Stereotypes about gender can cause unequal and unfair treatment because of a person's gender. There are four gender stereotypes: personality traits, domestic behavior, occupation, physical appearance.
The matrix of domination is defined as a sociological paradigm that explains issues of oppression that deal with race, class, and gender. Though recognized as different social classifications, they are all interconnected. So how does this layering of oppressions affect transgender women? Transgender women of color experience discrimination based on a culmination of their race, socioeconomic status, and gender, all at the same time. What can the matrix of domination potentially look like for a transgender female? As you can see from following the arrows, the matrix of domination discriminates an individual and places them on a path that is lacking in resources with no clear exit. So for example, if an individual identifies as transgender, this gender identity that does not conform to societal standards like mentioned previously, it can affect the type of job or lack thereof they may attain. No job or a low-paying job can lead to poverty. Poverty can then lead to stress and poor mental health. Since most healthcare is tied to employment, if they are lacking a job and its healthcare package, mental health problems can go unchecked. Poor mental health can keep an individual from holding a job and the benefits associated with being employed. Though this slide shows a linear path, this matrix can have an individual continuously going in circles. The image on the left, produced by the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs, shows the growing number of murders against the LGBTQ community. This data from 2011 states that 87% of the anti-LGBT murders that occurred were against people of color. Additionally, 45% of those murders were specifically against transgender individuals.
How can transgender females start having social acceptance? Getting educated and educating the public about the transgender female community, decreasing the amount of stereotypes among gender roles, listen to transgender people, understanding that it is acceptable to be different to others in society, decrease the amount of harassment and assaults against transgender people in kinder all the way to high school in settings of gender identity, being more open about this type of situations and talking to others about being transgender as well. So when it comes to actually listening to transgender people, is the best way to an ally is to listen with an open mind to transgender people speaking for themselves. Talk to transgender people in your community. Check out books, films, YouTube channels, and trans blogs.
What is social transformation? Social transformation can be defined as a large-scale social change through cultural reform by changes in society's systematic characteristics. These characteristics include technological, economic, political, and cultural changes. There are 5 steps to social transformation. The 5 steps are forming, storming, norming, performing, and transformation. The forming stage is forming a group through individual and organizational behavior. The storming stage is where different ideas compete for consideration. The norming stage is the common perspective on the systemic nature of the group which influence growth outside and inside other organizations. The performing stage is the promotion of new knowledge and seeking innovative ideas for solving existing problems in society. The transformation stage is the last and final stage where there is a creation of a meaningful and significant change to a society's construction makeup that positively impacts the society. This process is what transgender feminists undergo through their attempt at the current change in social transformation.
Goals for social transformation. The goal for social transformation is to bring about new changes and new patterns that create a shift or alteration to the organization of a society. From this final goal, it is possible for a society's value normative system to change. With regards to transgender feminism, the goal for activists is to gain public acceptance of the lifestyle and for proper integration into society to interact in harmony. Although the world is not perfect, the acceptance of someone being transgender would limit prejudice and hate in society.